Hello and welcome to Markets at Close update from Nirmal. Clearly, if you go to see, benchmark indices have fallen for a third consecutive session, and yes, there has been pressure from the financial names yet again today. In fact, if you see Nifty, it's ended below that 12,100 mark. We ended at levels of almost 12,015 today's session. It was the PSU banks that were the worst hit as well, and in fact, Sensex shed almost over around 200 points in trade. Clearly, we've ended near the day's lowest levels after fluctuating between gains and losses during the day. And overall, if you go to see a 0.5% to 0.6% downtick is what we've seen. In terms of broader markets as well, they've clearly underperformed the benchmark indices. Whereas if you see Bank Nifty as well, it's ended with cuts of almost around 0.5% to 0.6%. Third consecutive session where the Nifty PSU Bank Index has been the top loser. And you had oil and gas stocks also that were under pressure, and the top loser being ONGC out of them. Except consumer durables as well as the IT counters, all the other sectors ended in the red, and over 200 stocks actually hit a 52-week high on BSE today. In fact, if you see in terms of the market breadth as well, pretty much tilted towards the favor of sellers. So that was how the markets were looking like in today's day of trade. Let's quickly see in terms of stock specific action as well what it looked like. Clearly, you had top gainers coming in from the consumer durable space. So you had Titan, Nestle, which were the top gainers on Nifty 50, followed by TCS, Vedanta, as well as Wipro. Whereas you had Yes Bank, Coal India, Cipla, Gale, as well as ONGC. These were the Nifty losers in trade. Moving from the Nifty components, if you talk about the BSE 500 components as well, Reliance Infra, Lemon Tree Hotel, Manappuram Finance, you had the likes of Hathway Cable as well as Vardhaman Textile that were the top gainers, whereas you had MAS Financial, Centrum Capital, Intellect Design, Magma FinCorp. These were a few of the top losers. Talking about companies that hit a 52-week high, so you had companies like Bharti Airtel, Dr. Reddy's, as well as HCL Tech from Nifty 50, and from the broader markets, Balkrishna Industries as well as Torrent Pharma, which hit a 52-week high. Whereas Coal India, ONGC, BHEL, Bank of Baroda, as well as Indian Bank, these were a few of the names that hit a 52-week low, all coming in from the PSU space, and that actually defines as to why it was one of the top losing sectors in trade. Moving on, let's look at the movers and shakers of the day. Muthoot Finance, that counter zoomed on the back of Q3 earnings. In fact, a second consecutive session of gains for this counter, and it hit a 52-week high as well. You had Thyrocare also that moved up, and this was mainly on the back of the launch of blood-based cancer screening profile. You had NCC that has declined for a second consecutive session in trade. ONGC, as we mentioned, hit a 52-week low, and this was mainly on the back of the 48% dip that we saw on the consolidated profit number in the third quarter. Mishra Dhatu also surged to record high levels in trade, so that was an interesting counter. Orient Electric, that stock has moved up the highest in the last 14 months, so interesting moves coming in on that one. On the back of an earnings reaction, you had Glenmark Pharma as well that ended lower, and the volumes were also pretty higher in terms of Glenmark Pharma. Balkrishna Industries, the stock is up almost around 46% in the last 3 months, and the stock has now hit a 52-week high as well. So the good moves coming in on that space, as well as you had Alpha Geo that ended higher on the back of an order win. So these have been the movers and shakers of trade. Clearly, in the morning session also we actually indicated to you that the opening was indicated to be lower, and we were probably expecting a slight up move that could be coming in the second half of the trading session, but that clearly has not happened because we've seen cues that have been coming in from global markets as well that have been pretty mixed. The macro data has not been really great. You have a GDP number in terms of the forecast that has been lowered by Moody's, so that's something which is having an impact on the overall market, and the stocks have been overvalued, so there is a concern coming in on that front as well, and that's one of the reasons why we are seeing these kind of jitters coming in on the Indian markets, because clearly if you go to see the outlook for tomorrow in terms of Nifty and Bank Nifty as well, again, if Nifty breaks that 12,000 level in trade tomorrow, because we're just around 50 points away from breaking that 12,000 mark, we could see fresh shorts or even probably some bit of long unwinding that could be coming in terms of Nifty 50. So 12,000 now remains an important level to watch out for, because a strong base has been formed around the 12,000 level. However, the downside is seen in terms of the bank index, so keep continuous watch in terms of the financial names as well as Bank Nifty, and I think stay cautious could would be the word as of now in tomorrow's trade as well. In fact, that's all that we have in this session of the closing trade. Keep subscribing to the Nirmal Bank channel for more updates, and you could follow us on Twitter as well as Facebook. Thanks for watching.